Hi, my name's Phil. I like to talk about politics, and in amongst the news of the potential deficit facing Rachel Reeves this autumn, which according to some could be a beast, there are finally calls to address the issue with a fundamental reform. Top economists have been calling for this for some time, and I've said myself, I see it as absolutely the best way to fundamentally address two key issues. The first, a lot of very wealthy individuals tend to dodge taxes almost completely, loading the burden up on ordinary workers. And the second is the wealth gap is now so great that taxes only on the movement of money, spending and income, are just not enough. So now we're getting a bit of traction on the wealth tax, which can actually work instead of the populist easy answers nonsense, which other countries have proven doesn't work. Let's see if we can really push for it. But first, for daily news and politics, please click the subscribe button to stay notified. So this is going to be a bit of a beast. Let's go for it now. So first of all, what are the problems we have with our tax system? In a nutshell, it's this. We have suffered 14 years of deliberate Tory underinvestment in the country's infrastructure. This has left Labour not only trying to ramp up investment to suitable levels again, but to cover for over a decade of no tangible investment at all. And I mean that literally. I don't mean the Tories didn't do enough. They didn't do anything. Like, name me one thing which the Tories invested in. I'll wait. I've waited 14 years already. This, of course, requires funding. Labour can't possibly raise the amount of funding that will not only get the amount of investment back to where it should be, but to cover for 14 years of none at all. So they're also pushed into deregulation of certain sectors, as well as pinning their hopes on new technology in order to shove a stagnant economy into action with an impatient public who are waiting to elect the worst government we will have ever had if they don't succeed. But another problem is that most ordinary people are already paying a historically high level of tax, as well as dealing with the impacts of a cost of living crisis fueled by Brexit trade barriers, geopolitical instability, and increasingly inefficient privatised public utilities. So there are calls for wealth taxes, not just taxing spending and income, but taxing hoarded wealth. This is long overdue because so much money has not so much trickled down as flooded upwards. There is now lots of wealth locked into the country, which does nothing to help drive the economy. It's just sitting there, useless. But the simplified solutions offered by the loudest voices are risky at best. Some of them are not doomed to failure, but they are risky. And if you get it wrong, you end up with a Liz Truss situation and then you're knackered. And in some cases actually have provably failed in countries that have already tried them. But that doesn't mean that a wealth tax is not feasible, just that you need to be smarter about it. I've been saying for a while, have we not learned from Brexit? What was the problem with Brexit? Ultimately, people chose to ignore the experts. They're still doing it now, just on the other side. Some top economists, and I mean top economists, I don't mean famous economists, have been saying that we should reform land tax. Get rid of council tax, tax all land. Could actually result in people paying less land tax on their homes than they do council tax. And also, council tax just doesn't work. It never did. It was a bodge job from the start, hastily arranged after the failure of the poll tax. So as there's now a glimmer of some mention in the mainstream media about land tax reform now, whereas it had been isolated to the economic newspapers up until now, let's go over the arguments because it could be a genuine game changer. Right now, we pay tax on just about every pound we earn. Some is easy. We know how some of it's taxed. Income tax, national insurance. But there's also council tax, road tax. You've got VAT on almost everything you buy with the rest of your money. But the wealthiest people in Britain are making billions from one asset you can't hide, you can't send offshore. The land right under our feet. And right now they're paying next to nothing for it. We effectively have two tax systems hardwired into the British economy. There's one for the vast majority of us who work for a living, and a completely different one for a tiny number of people who just own. I mean, you look at your payslip or your tax return, the deductions are all there. You can see it. You've got income tax, national insurance. You buy almost anything, you pay VAT. These are taxes on doing things, on creating, on earning, and they're nearly impossible to avoid. But what if your wealth doesn't come from a job? What if your fortune just grows? You're sleeping, your fortune's growing. Just because you own a piece of London or a portfolio of properties, passive unearned increase in land value is where the real money is made. We're not even talking about landlords who have to put some effort into maintaining the properties and all the rest of it. No. Just land naturally increasing in value and therefore people's wealth naturally increasing without them having to do a damn thing other than own it. And it's where our tax system is at its weakest. The top 1% in Britain have more wealth than 70% of the population combined. But our tax system is built to tax income, not assets. That has created a paradise for passive wealth, funneling an inequality crisis that is absolutely at the moment pulling the country apart. But there is a solution, a fix that's okay. There's no such thing as completely simple and fair is subjective, but a lot of economists are calling it the perfect tax. And there's been economists calling for it since before I was born. And it's a loophole Britain could close quite quickly. Would take some time, but with modern technology, we could close it a lot quicker than we could 50 years ago. So let's break down this rigged system. So the real problem is what we choose to tax. In the UK, we tax work. We tax it heavily. Teacher, nurse, software developer, big chunk of their salary is gone before it even hits the bank account. Then you look at wealth, not money someone earns, but the assets they own. The number of billionaires in the UK has skyrocketed to over 165 as of 2024. Huge part of their wealth doesn't come from inventing a world-changing product. We're not talking about Bill Gates here. It's just from owning property and land. And this is where the divide becomes a chasm. While income from work is taxed at rates of up to 45% in the UK, the profit from selling an asset, capital gains, is taxed at a much lower rate. It's a system that fundamentally benefits income from wealth over income from work. But the biggest loophole involves the land itself. Our main property tax, council tax, complete joke. And the joke's on us. In England and Scotland, it's based on property values from way back in 1991. Wales did revalue properties in 2003, but even that's massive. It's over 20 years out of date. Think about how much house prices have shot up by then, and not all evenly. Some parts of the country more than others. The tax hasn't kept pace. That makes it deeply unfair. In Westminster, one of the richest parts of London, the annual council tax on a typical home can be less than half of what a homeowner in a less wealthy area like Hartlepool pays. System's broken. Hammers productive work, barely touches passive wealth. It's created a situation where the top 10% of households now hold 43% of all the wealth, while the bottom 50% just own 9%. That didn't happen by accident. It happened by design. It rewards the people who contribute the least. So how does this broken system actively make everything worse? It creates bizarre incentives. Incentives that are counter to the needs of society. It punishes work and rewards hoarding. Now imagine two identical plots of land, side by side in a growing city. You've got the first plot, a developer takes the risk. They invest millions, build a block of flats for 100 families, create jobs. What's their reward from the taxman? A bigger council tax bill because they improved the property. Now look at the second plot. The owner, a speculator, just does absolutely nothing. They just sit on it. Land gets used for nothing. They just own it. They build nothing. They contribute nothing. They just wait as the city grows around their land. New transport links are built with our money. Businesses open. Community thrives. The value of their land soars. Not because of anything they did, but because of the work of everyone else. What's their reward? Tiny tax bill, because we're not really taxing that land much, but a massive unearned fortune when they decide to sell it. Our system punishes the home builder and rewards the land speculator. It encourages landowners to keep land derelict just for waiting for the value to rise. It's land banking. It's a huge driver of our housing crisis, for example. Land that's perfectly fit to build on, but it's more valuable for the owner to not do anything with it than to do something productive. While families struggle to find a place to live, and of course that has driven a lot of the rhetoric that I was talking about earlier today in terms of divisions in society, you've got vast swathes of valuable land lying empty in our towns and cities, not even being taxed to contribute. It's not just unfair, it's economically self-destructive. It strangles development, it pushes up house prices, funnels wealth into the hands of those who contribute nothing. And as I say, at the moment, because it's now obvious, and Nigel Farage preys on this, it's now obvious that we just don't have enough resources to go around. He's telling you it's immigrants. It's not. It's a few people just own land and don't do anything with it. The value of land is created by all of us as a society. Comes from the infrastructure we fund and the communities we build. Yet we allow a tiny minority of landowners to capture this socially created wealth, almost entirely tax-free. But there is, of course, a better way. A single change that fixes the broken system. And it's not a radical new idea. It's an idea that economists have been talking about right back to Adam Smith. It's land value tax. They've been talking about this for generations, well over a century. A land value tax. Very simple in concept. It's a regular charge on the value of the land itself, completely ignores the value of the buildings on top of it. That is the difference. It's not a property tax, doesn't penalise you for building an extension, improving your home or running a business, actually encourages it. Because if you build a skyscraper on a plot of land, your bill stays the same as if the plot was empty. The tax is based purely on the location's value, the value created by the community, transport links and local economy. Now, I have said myself in the past, you could still adapt it. You could, if you wanted, distinguish between property that's used for primary residence and property that's used for a holiday home that's vacant most of the time if you wanted. But you wouldn't need to encourage the building of it. It could still be the same. And you would still encourage people to build on the land. Because if you're going to have to pay a certain amount of tax for a plot of land, well, you want the land to help pay that tax bill, don't you? Otherwise, you're going to be paying it from your wealth. So if you want to preserve your wealth, you have to at least use that land. You have to make the land pay for itself. That's what this would do. That's its superpower. It's very difficult to avoid. Like, you can move your wealth to an offshore account. You can register your super yacht in a tax haven. You cannot move an acre of land in Mayfair to Monaco. The asset being taxed is fixed, it's visible. Avoidance becomes almost impossible. I had someone say to me, because I've talked about this for a while, one time someone said, well, sometimes it's difficult to know who owns the land, so who do you send the tax bill to? It's really easy. You just put a note out there going, right, this land owes a certain amount of tax. If no one comes forward to claim it's theirs, it must belong to the government. That's really easy. At the end of the day, all land in this country is the government, unless someone can demonstrate ownership of it, right? So if someone can demonstrate ownership of it, right, that's the person you tax. So that's easy. It would close one of the most outrageous loopholes in the British tax system. Duke of Westminster recently, a few years ago, inherited an estate worth about £9 billion. A lot of it prime London real estate. But because the land was held in trust, the family avoided paying what should have been a few billion inheritance tax. Didn't pay anything, as far as I know. Certainly didn't pay the 40% they're supposed to. Land value tax changes it. Doesn't matter who owns the land or how it's held, the tax on its underlying value is due year after year. It ensures that those who own the most valuable parts of our country make a fair contribution to society that makes their land valuable in the first place. A land value tax isn't just about fairness, it sends transformative ripples across the entire economy. It first of all would raise a lot more money than we get now. Again, you replace council tax, replace it with this, it generates way, way more, right? Secondly, it gets people who own land to focus on making that land productive. It gives the country a stable and predictable source of revenue. Unlike taxes on profits or transactions, which can fluctuate wildly, like, okay, we've got a bit of land erosion going on, but it's not that bad, right? The government knows from year to year how much land there is, and they're the ones setting the rate on it, right? Very, very stable source of taxation. The tax is very hard to dodge. It's reliable income that can fund public services, hospitals, schools, basic infrastructure, transport, everything. Could even let us cut some of the more inefficient taxes that hold the economy back. People talk about stamp duty. There's a lot of people left and right don't like stamp duty. You can get rid of stamp duty. Don't need it, right? Second, many economists believe it would be a powerful weapon against the UK's housing crisis. It makes it expensive to sit on empty or underdeveloped land. It would force speculators either build something to generate an income or sell the land to someone who will. That would spark a new wave of new development, increasing the supply of homes, helping to make them more affordable. Because at the moment, the government are really trying to push on getting more homes built, but it's like they're swimming upstream. You know, leaving properties empty would become a very, very expensive affair. Third, it would rebalance our economy away from unproductive speculation towards genuine enterprise. The current system encourages people to pour money into the property market instead of invested in new businesses that create jobs. A land value tax changes that around. It rewards productive investment by shifting the tax burden from hard work and onto unearned passive income. And this isn't a left or right wing idea either. The idea of having lower taxes right wing and maybe higher taxes left wing, but it has supporters across the political spectrum because both sides accept that there needs to be some taxes. And this is a much more efficient and much more fair tax, and it promotes growth. It tackles wealth inequality, doesn't punish success. That's one of the problems with some of the other forms of wealth tax. It's not just that you can easily move your money away, but there's arguments that, hang on a minute, this is punishing me for making more money. It ensures the windfall gains from land, gains created by society, are shared with that society. We have a tax system that tells you to work hard, but tells the super rich to just own things. A system where you're taxed on every pound you earn, while billions in unearned land wealth go pretty much untouched. A system that rewards hoarding empty land while millions of people are desperate for a home. That's not sustainable and it's not fair. And if it's not fixed, we are going to end up with a MAGA type government that's going to set fire to the country. A land value tax isn't massively complicated. I'm not saying it's easy. You'd have to work it out very carefully, make sure you didn't have unintended consequences. But it's been talked about for so many years, and top economists still today say it's actually easier now. I've seen a Nobel Prize winning economist say it's easier now because of AI to do it. It's a straightforward, or as straightforward as any tax policy can be, powerful solution which has been championed by economists for literally centuries. It's a tax on unearned wealth, not productive work. It's stable, it's efficient. It would generate huge revenues to fund the services we all rely on. It could unlock land for homes and businesses, rebalance our economy. This is the billionaire's loophole Britain could close really very quickly. The arguments are really clear. The benefits are enormous. The only thing missing is the political will to just go for it. And the question isn't whether we can fix this broken system. As far as I'm concerned, like, here's the thing, right? I'm not an economist. Any number of people could make an economic argument to me that would sound plausible to me, just like many of you, right? This has come from top economists. Top economists are saying this can work. So the question isn't whether we can fix this system. The question is, will we encourage our government to try by putting our shoulders behind ideas championed by the actual experts? Ones we can be reasonably confident don't just sound plausible to us non-experts, but actual experts say it can work. But let me know what you think in the comments below. And for more content, you could subscribe to the channel or even join for access to streams and behind the scenes updates. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.